Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we turn our attention to a region where history, politics, and human lives intersect in ways that shape not just the Middle East, but the world as a whole. Southern Lebanon has once again become a focal point of international concern, as recent military actions have brought both tension and an uncertainty to communities that have endured decades of conflict. In the next few minutes, we're going to unpack what's happening on the ground, examine the implications for the region, and explore why understanding these events matters, not just for governments and policymakers, but for each of us who follow global developments and care about peace and stability. This is more than just news. It's a story about people, safety, and the delicate balance between security and humanity. By the end of this discussion, you'll have a clearer picture of the situation, the forces at play, and the paths forward that can help prevent escalation and protect lives. So, stay with me as we dive into the latest developments, break down the facts, and consider what this means for the future of the Middle East and why it matters to the world today. Earlier today, Israel carried out a series of airstrikes targeting positions identified as belonging to Hezbollah and Hamas in southern Lebanon. These strikes represent a calculated move by the Israeli military to address perceived security threats along the border, which has historically been a flashpoint for conflict and cross-border tensions. The region in question, located near Lebanon's southern boundary with Israel, has long been recognized as a sensitive zone, where various militant groups have established positions and infrastructure over the years. These groups, particularly Hezbollah, have maintained a significant military presence in southern Lebanon, while Hamas has been known to coordinate activities in the region through its network of operatives. The airstrikes were reportedly aimed at neutralizing military infrastructure, including storage facilities, operational command centers, and other strategic locations believed to be linked to potential attacks or threats against Israeli territory. Such operations are often framed by Israel as preventive measures designed to protect civilian populations and deter imminent threats, reflecting a long-standing pattern of preemptive defense in the context of regional security concerns. The precision and timing of the strikes indicate a level of planning consistent with modern military protocols, including the use of intelligence gathering and aerial surveillance to identify targets and minimize collateral damage. Despite this, the strikes inevitably heighten the risk of escalation, given the complex network of alliances, loyalties, and rivalries in the region. Southern Lebanon has seen numerous confrontations over the decades, and any military action there can have ripple effects, potentially drawing in local militias, neighboring states, or even prompting retaliatory measures. The timing of the airstrikes, coupled with regional political dynamics, also contributes to the broader significance of the event. Analysts suggest that Israel's decision to strike at this moment may be influenced by recent intelligence reports indicating planned hostile activities or the movement of weapons that could threaten its southern communities. Additionally, such operations send a message to both domestic and international audiences, demonstrating the capability and readiness of the Israeli Defense Forces to respond decisively to threats, while signaling a commitment to national security. While immediate reports focus on the military objectives and operational details, the broader context includes the long-standing history of tension along the Israel-Lebanon border, where periods of relative calm are often punctuated by incidents that escalate quickly due to the presence of armed groups with political and ideological motivation. These groups often operate in densely populated areas, which presents challenges in executing targeted operations without affecting civilians. As the situation develops, observers continue to assess the potential implications of the strikes, including the risk of further confrontation, humanitarian considerations, and the response from the international community. The complexity of the southern Lebanon region, combined with the strategic interests of multiple actors, underscores the delicate balance that exists between conducting defensive military operations and maintaining broader regional stability. The strikes carried out by Israel took place in southern Lebanon, a region that has long been recognized as a strategically sensitive and historically contested area. Southern Lebanon borders northern Israel and has frequently served as a corridor for militant activity, smuggling, and cross-border operations over the decades. The geographic characteristics of this area, including its rugged terrain, urban settlements, and proximity to Israel, make it both a challenging environment for military operations and a high-risk zone for potential escalation. The southern districts are home to numerous communities, including civilians who have, over generations, coexisted with the presence of various political and armed groups. This coexistence creates a complex environment where military actions must be carefully planned to minimize harm to non-combatants, while still addressing the perceived threats posed by militant infrastructure and weaponry. The specific locations targeted in the strikes are understood to be associated with Hezbollah and Hamas, groups that have historically maintained operational networks in the region. Hezbollah in particular has a deeply entrenched presence in southern Lebanon, including fortified positions, supply routes, and storage facilities, while Hamas has maintained smaller, less permanent installations. The strategic importance of these locations lies in their potential to facilitate attacks across the border into Israel, making them high-priority targets from a security standpoint. The border area has also been a flashpoint for past conflicts with previous military exchanges, skirmishes, and periods of heightened alert, contributing to the region's ongoing volatility. Evacuation orders issued by local authorities reflect an awareness of the risks posed to civilian populations in areas near the targeted sites, emphasizing the need for precautionary measures to reduce the likelihood of casualties. The presence of civilian communities in close proximity to militant positions complicates any military operation, requiring precision strikes and careful coordination. The southern Lebanese border has long been monitored by both international observers and local authorities, given its significance as a potential trigger point for wider regional confrontations. Any military activity in this area has implications not only for immediate security concerns, but also for broader diplomatic and humanitarian considerations. Analysts highlight that the geographic location amplifies the potential consequences of military actions, as even limited strikes can trigger retaliatory measures or escalate tensions with neighboring states. The strategic importance of southern Lebanon is further underscored by its role in the logistics and communication networks of Hezbollah and Hamas, making it a critical point for monitoring, intelligence gathering, and potential disruption. The combination of civilian settlements, historical tensions, and strategic military infrastructure means that the region requires careful handling by all parties involved, balancing defensive objectives with the need to minimize collateral damage and maintain stability along the border. The immediate impact of these strikes therefore extends beyond the physical destruction of military targets to include considerations of civilian safety, humanitarian concerns, psychological effects, and the maintenance of regional stability in a historically sensitive area. The recent airstrikes by Israel in southern Lebanon have contributed to a notable escalation in regional tensions, highlighting the delicate balance of security and political interests in the Middle East. This area has historically been a flashpoint where military operations, political disputes, and the presence of armed groups intersect, creating conditions in which even limited actions can have far-reaching consequences. The targeted locations associated with Hezbollah and Hamas are part of a broader network of military and logistical infrastructure that spans southern Lebanon and reaches across borders, making any military engagement highly significant in terms of regional stability. These groups maintain strong organizational ties and receive varying degrees of support and influence from regional actors, which means that any strike can have implications beyond the immediate area. As a result, the strikes have prompted concern among neighboring countries, international observers, and diplomatic bodies about the potential for retaliatory actions or further escalation. Analysts point out that Hezbollah, in particular, has historically responded to perceived threats with a combination of political maneuvering and, at times, military demonstrations which could include rocket launches, border skirmishes, or other forms of asymmetric response. The potential for escalation is further amplified by the complex political landscape of Lebanon itself, where local governance, militia activity, and community dynamics interact with external pressures from regional powers. The strikes may influence internal political dynamics as leaders and groups assess the impact on their constituencies and consider responses that balance domestic support with broader strategic objective. Additionally, the escalation has implications for Israel, which must weigh the effectiveness of military operations against the risks of provoking wider regional conflict. Security forces are likely monitoring the border and surrounding areas to anticipate and respond to potential retaliatory measures. The heightened state of alert extends beyond military considerations to include civil preparedness, as local authorities may implement evacuation plans, emergency protocols, and communication strategies to ensure the safety of residents near the border. International actors are also closely observing the situation, emphasizing restraint and encouraging dialogue to prevent further deterioration. Diplomatic efforts, both public and behind the scenes, play a critical role in mitigating the risk of broader confrontation. The regional tensions underscored by these airstrikes reflect the broader challenges of maintaining stability in a complex environment where military, political, and social factors are deeply interconnected. Any action in southern Lebanon has the potential to influence neighboring countries, shape international relations, and affect global perceptions of security in the Middle East. Experts emphasize that while military operations may achieve immediate tactical objectives, the long-term consequences for regional stability, humanitarian conditions, and political dynamics must be carefully considered. The current situation illustrates the fragility of peace in regions where historical grievances, political rivalries, and armed groups coexist, and underscores the importance of measured responses, effective communication, and ongoing engagement with all stakeholders to prevent escalation and maintain stability. The international response to the recent Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon has been swift and measured, reflecting widespread concern over the potential for further escalation in an already volatile region. Governments, diplomatic organizations, and international observers have closely monitored the situation, emphasizing the need for restraint and adherence to established norms of international law and humanitarian principles. The strikes, which targeted positions linked to Hezbollah and Hamas, have drawn statements from multiple countries and organizations urging all parties to avoid actions that could provoke a wider conflict. International bodies, including the United Nations, have reiterated calls for dialogue and peaceful resolution, highlighting that military engagements, even when limited in scope, can have far-reaching consequences not only for neighboring states but also for regional stability and global security. Diplomats have underscored the importance of communication channels between Israel, Lebanon, and other regional actors to prevent misunderstandings or miscalculations that could lead to unintended escalation. Analysts note that the responses from key international players are shaped by multiple factors, including political alliances, security interests, and humanitarian concerns, which influence the tone and urgency of public statements. Many countries have also emphasized the protection of civilian populations, noting that the proximity of military targets to residential areas in southern Lebanon requires careful planning and accountability to minimize collateral damage. Humanitarian organizations operating in the region are closely observing developments to ensure that adequate support is available for communities potentially affected by military actions or resulting tensions. The international reaction also reflects concerns over the broader implications for Middle East diplomacy, particularly in light of recent regional agreements, alliances, and ongoing conflicts that have already strained relationships among neighboring countries. By advocating for restraint and dialogue, international actors aim to mitigate the risk of escalation and encourage all parties to seek solutions through negotiation rather than force. The global attention on this event highlights the interconnected nature of regional conflicts and the potential for localized incidents to influence international relations, trade, and security policies. Observers point out that measured international responses can play a critical role in stabilizing the situation by discouraging retaliatory actions and encouraging communication between opposing sides. In addition, statements from foreign governments and organizations often serve to reassure the international community, including investors, humanitarian agencies, and neighboring states, that efforts are being made to prevent broader conflict and maintain regional stability. The emphasis on restraint, dialogue, and humanitarian principles reflects a recognition that military actions, even when targeted and strategic, do not exist in isolation and must be understood within the context of a complex network of political, social, and security considerations. The international community's focus on monitoring, reporting, and providing guidance underscores the role of diplomacy and multilateral engagement in preventing escalation, supporting civilian safety, and fostering conditions for eventual conflict resolution. This approach prioritizes long-term stability and the maintenance of peace in a region that has experienced cycles of tension and military engagement for decades. While the recent Israeli airstrikes in southern Lebanon targeted military positions associated with Hezbollah and Hamas, it is important to consider the broader context and the necessity of prioritizing peace and humanitarian concerns. While tensions are high and challenges are complex, it is through dialogue, careful decision-making, and attention to humanitarian needs that stability and peace can be pursued. We've explored the facts, the regional dynamics, and the international response. And it's important to remember that in every story like this, there are communities, families, and lives affected. Remaining informed, thoughtful, and compassionate allows us to engage with the world responsibly and encourages a mindset that values both safety and humanity. Thank you for joining me today and taking the time to understand a situation that affects not just a region, but the balance of peace around the world. I wish you all the best as you continue to stay informed, think critically, and engage in conversations that matter. Good luck, stay safe, and thank you for being part of this discussion.